You can get your first six multi figures on cortisol and hustle, and then it stops working. The body hits the limit, and the strategy starts costing more than it produces. And the woman running it is too far in to see what's actually happening. My guest today says the next level isn't more hustle, it's calm leadership. I'm Desi Batista, and this is Expansion, where we talk identity, business, and what it actually takes to live the life you desire. Kelly Adams is on the show. Let's get into it. Can you take me back to a moment in your own journey when you realized something had to change internally before the results for you could change?
Yeah. So it was 2018. We had sold our business. Unfortunately, we sold it because I was burnt out. And I knew I was 39 years old, having a huge identity crisis. The money had stopped, the validation had stopped. And I was like, who am I if I'm not Kelly with Ace anymore? And I always jokingly say that you can get your first six figures from cortisol and hustle. And then when you want to continue to scale and go to the next level, you have to move into more calm leadership. And in hindsight, I didn't know all of this that I know now, but I realized that I had to do something differently. So I was literally on the ground crying in a fetal position. I had no idea what my next move was. And I had realized in that moment that the next phase of my life was going to show women how to have balance and bank without the burnout. Because when you're growing or you're stuck or you feel capped, it's if you're a high achieving perfectionist woman and the go-to is to work harder, to do more, to not turn it off. And that's great until your body hits a point. It's like driving down the car with the brakes on. And it's like you get to the point where something has to change because you're burning out and it's not working. And so I think the biggest swap is learning how to do something differently when everything in your body wants you to work harder and do more. It's like a very real resistance that you feel. It's real. And unless you've been there, it's hard to explain. And so I think you're on everything you've learned to a certain point.
Now, when high achieving women come to you, what do they think the problem is?
Business every single time. So it's always my marketing's not working. I need to rebrand. I need to rebuild my funnel. And so no one is coming to me knowing that what is impacting them is personal. They always, on the surface, they're always like, it's a business problem. And I just listen and smile. And I'm like, okay. And then I call them love nudges in my world. I'm like, okay, now thank you for sharing. Thank you for being transparent and vulnerable. Would you like me to really share what's going on? I do a lot of work, powerful questioning and shadow work that goes all the way back to the age of birth, actually. And I can ask a couple quick questions and I can show them how a personal pattern is still playing out in business that they have identified as a business problem. Women, aren't we amazing? Aren't we amazing and complicated? It's so much easier to think about fixing a problem and investing more into the next coach, the next course, the next thing that we think is the fix versus going inward, clearing it out, finding the patterns, finding the limited beliefs, finding the old stories, getting down to them at the root, and then they no longer play out. We get so comfortable because these patterns get so sophisticated that we can't see them because they're so close to you. No one's walking around. The reason my income is capped is because I don't feel safe being seen and heard. Or every time I almost hit success, then I automatically self-sabotage or whatever is moving through. We're all different. We all have different stories and environments, but nobody is able to typically identify it because that's almost harder work to do than just saying it's a business problem. I think only the top 1% do it. I think the top people are the only ones that end up going on an inward journey, which impacts in a positive way everything externally beyond the business. I always say I want you to have a rich life, not just a rich business. I want you to have relationships that are rich. I want you to be a present mama. I want you to have a business that's rich. I want you to have the freedom. But if you're at the top and you're stuck, some people are so poor, all they have is money and they have to choose to do the other work.
Yes, I think it's ironic how we think if we can have a good business, then our family life is not going to be complete, or we can only operate fully on one aspect of our lives. And I'm so glad you mentioned that about the pattern showing up in early childhood. How
Okay.
far back do you trace women's patterns that are affecting them today in their business and in their lives?
So if I need, so typically the very first thing when I'm getting on a call, like I literally, I'm like, tell me about elementary school. It's hard for people to consciously go back past that. But if I give them a timestamp, I'm like, tell me what life was like. Who are you living with? What do you remember hearing about money? How are mom or dad or whoever's your caregiver, how are they interacting together? And so it is so crazy and beautiful. I was just on a conversation with a woman yesterday and she had this aha moment. She's, oh, I remember hiding money under the rugs in my bedroom, under the lamps, even at a small age of 8, because we just found a pattern how she runs when she gets too close because of safety, because every time she made it, it was taken away. And at a very young age of 8, she had an aha moment yesterday that she was remembering she used to hide money at home. Who's walking around thinking about that? Unless
Right?
you're called forward or forced to think outside of the level of consciousness you're operating in, it's just not like how we think.
Yeah, normally we're not thinking, oh, this pattern or this thing that happened in childhood is messing up my business right now. Now, I know
Yeah.
you mentioned one of the ways it shows up or it showed up for your client was that she would run away when she's getting close. Are there
Yeah.
any other ways you see the patterns showing up in business?
Oh my goodness. How much time do we have? So I would say some of the most common ones are safety, judgment. A lot comes with assuming other people's pocketbooks, depending on how you were wired or what you grew up. I would say one of the biggest ones is judgment. The amount of times I have to clear judgment or the fear of being seen and heard from a woman are probably the top two. That is so big because whether it's a past relationship, Betsy from middle school who said something crazy, that then the imprint, I always think, I think of our bodies as a book of stories. And anything that we feel as little people elicits a pain response, the body remembers because and when we're little, we can't internalize that. We're not even, our brain's not even developed enough to think that way. So we just remember the pain. And then the body's job is to keep us away from pain and towards pleasure. The body doesn't know if now you're speaking to your next sales call or if it's remembering the pain of something before. Just a feeling feels familiar. And so when that feeling comes up, the body's alert, alert, you're in danger. And so a lot of that is just reorienting back to the present, doing the work, creating the awareness around where the imprint was created, and then clearing that. And then when I literally watch women do that lifetime, it's like you can honestly instantly see. I always think of it like the helium come out of a balloon. It's like they're like, oh my goodness, it gives them so much permission because then they don't feel crazy. They don't feel like something's wrong with them because those are the things that happen when we're in business and we feel stuck or it's not working or we're capped. What's wrong with me? Why is it working for somebody else? No one wants to hear what I have to say. And it almost gives them permission to remember who they were before the world got a hold of them. I always say no one holds up a brand new baby and is like, you are not worthy. You're still that brand new baby with a little bit of bruises along the way now. So instead of having the bruise poke you invisibly, let's heal. Let's heal. It gets to be good. It gets to be easy.
Absolutely. Now, you wrote that the most dangerous thing inside high performing people right now is being mistaken for resilience, and it's actually emotional numbness. Can you walk me through how to tell the difference?
I think grit and hustle has become a badge of honor. So I would associate emotional numbness as burnout essentially, or when I said it's like your body is hit its threshold. And so if you haven't felt this yet, you would know when you feel it. But the go to, like I kind of shared to circle back, is to work harder, to do more, to grind through it. That's why you have people that are on their computer 24/7 and can't get off it. And so they're thinking they're being wise, they're being a good business owner, they're hustling, they're doing whatever they have to get through. And instead, This is a twofold thing that's coming through, but instead it's if you would slow down and step into the lighter feeling. I always say light feelings equate to light actions. That's a heavy feeling. So you're making heavy actions. There's nothing that feels good about grinding 24/7 or working harder and doing more because you're stuck. And instead, but I can't emphasize enough for the type of woman I work with, a high achieving perfectionist woman, that is painful because you're more comfortable with chaos than you are calm. So that's why I literally teach a specific framework that's called release, reset, rewire, because it's not safe. If you're not grinding, it doesn't feel safe. And so calm is boring. Calm is you're falling behind. Calm is something's wrong. And so I do think it's a complete rewiring of the way you think and do and show up in business. So I think like resilience and grit and hustle is just gets disguised in the body until your body hits a breaking point.
And then I want to take it back a little bit. You were mentioning how the body remembers and kind of keeps scores. So I think that's probably why people they get into situations or even in their marketing or their sales where they just start feeling like these anxiety attacks almost and they
Yeah.
can't pinpoint, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, or they avoid certain tasks because it
Yeah.
causes them so much anxiety or so much shame and it brings
Yeah.
wounds up that they really don't know how to deal with.
Yeah. I agree. Again, it's like I always say you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. And what's really interesting is these patterns protected us when we were little people, but now as a grown woman and integrated adult, you have to realize I always call it a pattern interrupt because the pattern's playing out. And then I think people hit their breaking point and reach out when they're stuck to me, but it's they've had compound interest. That pattern has played out 27 times and you're just the whisper turned into a roar and you can't avoid it anymore. So I always jokingly say I could have saved you tens of thousands of dollars if you would have come to me in the first place instead of chasing this business problem that you had. And I see it time after time. People are just coach hopping looking for the solution that's outside of them instead of doing the most powerful work I personally feel, which is the inside work.
Now, when women come to you, they come to you because they think they're having strategy problems or something in their business outside of themselves. Now, when you change it and you tell them this is actually what's happening inside of you or your nervous system, how do they react to that?
Like a relief. So it's like I give them so well, first of all, I know how to meet people where they're at. So it's not necessarily that expedited that fast. And each person is honest to goodness completely custom unless you're in one of my signature offers that walks you through something. But everything else, I'm meeting them exactly where they're at. So I guess everybody has their own secret magic sauce. So some of my magic sauce is knowing how fast I can go, how much exposure I can share with them. And I'm kind of watching. I read a lot of body language. It's like you're saying this and your soul's telling me this. And then when I say out loud what they're scared to say out loud, because then if they say it out loud, it's true, then it's almost like I feel relief. Hope and relief is what they feel because somebody is telling them, look, it doesn't have to be this hard. It's fixable. And a lot of times they say we're slowing down to speed up. It doesn't mean you can't have an amazing business that's growing simultaneously, but 1 hour a week. I ask for 1 hour a week so you can go crush the other 167 hours of the week. So if you give yourself that compartmentalized 1 hour to do the work, release it from your body in layers, because everything happens in layers, then it's like the goal is to take you back to set point, or I always say before the world got a hold of you. Whereas a lot of business owners, I feel, are operating as thermometers. They're high and low, left and right, depending on if they signed a client, if they got $27,000 this month and then 47 the next. The rules they create for themselves are insane. And so they keep raising the ceiling and then wondering why they're feeling incompleted all the time. But I really just like to teach people how to operate like a thermostat. I'm safe with me. I understand me. And zooming out on business, like as a CEO, you're not looking at your numbers and your business problems every day or every month. You're going to go nuts. You're like looking at it by quarter or by the year and being okay with the fluctuation throughout. But being okay comes from a calm, regulated nervous system that you have to retrain and uncondition from all the patterns that's created up until this point.
I like how you say the calm regulated nervous system and how hopefully they're looking at it quarterly, but I've seen people where they can't detach themselves. They're like constantly looking back. Oh my God, how much do I have left? How much did I invest this week?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you're keeping yourself constantly in this just high alert all the time.
That is a red light sign that they are not safe. They've put their money, their safety in money. So they put it outside of themselves instead of realizing they're the magic that made the money in the first place. So that is so common though too, is it feels safer until you do the work. It's like that's how you're validated, or that's how you're getting your quick dopamine hit. That's how you're reinforcing that it's working or not, instead of just knowing, yes, I'm powerful, it's working, I'm calm, I'm safe, business is great. And that's a different mindset too. I used to literally, back in the day, I was known as the mindset expert. I would be in a lot of high level business coaches mastermind. And then all these clients started 10Xing and blowing up. And then what I realized, I did so much nervous system work alongside with the mindset. So now I really think the most powerful place 8 years later, after learning and seeing so many women, is to have the duality of the mindset and the nervous system, because body moves, mind follows. So if we only work on the mind, it's like going from better to good. If you work on the mind and the body, those same feelings come up. You can't outthink them. You have to let them move through your body. Then you go from good to great. And then you're like this unstoppable machine and out in the world, because you don't have three nervous systems. You don't have one nervous system for your husband or partner, one for business, and then one for your kids. You have one that is running the show across the board. So let's calm the one central tower and then watch everything else begin to operate in a place of calm.
Oh, you said that so perfectly because when people try to change or they're trying to fix something, they'll be like, I need to work on my body, I need to work on my business. And they're trying to almost do so many different identities when, like you said, it's
Yeah.
one center. And that
Yeah.
it kind of slips into everything else and it moves across the board, not, okay, I need to do this. And it doesn't have to be everything compartmentalized in that way. So,
Game changer. We could literally mic drop right now and just tell women to go work on slowing down to speed up. And if this podcast resonates you want to barf in your mouth when you just heard me say that, because it feels so painful. I was also the woman when I started my journey. I was so lost. I can't even believe how lost I was. I couldn't even sit still for 1 minute, because slowing down means all the stories come up, and then you have to think through all the stuff you don't want to think through.
yeah, now you have time to think about stuff that you really don't want in your mind. You're like, oh no. So you keep
But I
yourself
feel like it's a
occupied.
learning process. I feel like confidence is earned, not given. And confidence comes from doing the work. I just doing the work. You can't say you want a six pack, but eat terrible and not go to the gym. You can't say you want
Like,
to feel safe in your business and scale and get to the next level, but choose never to operate on the person who's running the business. It just
absolutely.
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't go together. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about the revenue, a hidden revenue ceiling that most founders never see coming. What is it and why do people miss it?
Exactly what we talked about at the beginning, because they have put it in a business problem or the marketing. Usually people say, my marketing's not working, the algorithm's not working, no one's watching, no one's doing this. So again, it gets identified as a business problem. Think about how most businesses are started. You're hyped. You've either solved a problem yourself. And so that excitement, that vision, that adrenaline, it can get you so far. But in business, there's nothing between you and business. If you're working for someone else, there's a logo. So people don't take things personally. If you work for Coca-Cola, shout out Coca-Cola. I should have shouted out Alani. Shout out Alani. If you work for Alani and you don't have energy, people aren't like, it's, people are just like, they're not blaming it on Alani, but they're like, don't be mad at me. You're mad at
Right.
Alani. You work. But like when you are the business, everything that is business related becomes personal because there's nothing to create that distance between who you are and what you do. So I think it's an identity shift in really understanding who you are versus the business, whereas most people I find combine the two, and then instead of they're capped in their income, but it's something personal that is capping it, and then it's like when they can see it and clear it, I can watch it time and time again. I could call myself out. Let me give you an example. This is so good. So I've learned recently, dang it, I was so mad at myself for learning this lesson again, like a $30,000 marketing lesson. So it's not the coach, it was Kelly. So I'm going to say I kept hiring these marketing coaches when I wanted to go to the next level. And then finally, somebody got on the call. They're like, you don't have a marketing problem. And I was like, oh my gosh, that it's me. So then I had to sit in my own stuff again and realize what part of me I was playing small. And since I wasn't in going to the next level, the only thing I could identify that was a problem was marketing. I'm like, hello, I work on this stuff every single day. And I just did the exact same thing that I help other people through. And so I had to sit in it and realize what parts of me still needed to grow, what parts of me needed, what identities needed to let go, and do the work to step into that version of where I was going. And honest to goodness, I wish I could make this up, but I couldn't. The minute I did that, I signed 2 high ticket private clients in a 24-hour window just by going back to being me and knowing what I know. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's, but it was so sexy and sophisticated and so close to me, and I couldn't find anything else. But sometimes we're capped because who we're becoming is more important than what we're going through. And so I had to continue to grow and expand because where I was going required a bigger version of me. So I had to slow down to do that work. And then it's like I just worked on killing the stories, expanding my capacity. And so then I could move to the next level. And I did. It's like beautiful clockwork. So now I get excited. Now I'll get excited about these moments that feel slow because I'm like, okay, I'm about to scale.
That's so interesting. You said you didn't need a better strategy. You needed to work on your capacity. How does someone do that? And how do they notice, okay, it's my capacity. It's not the strategy. It's not the marketing.
Yeah. So the number one thing I like to do is somatic work. I feel like I think of these stories as almost like the best way to explain it is like a rock or a boulder or something inside taking up space. I think of our bodies as an energetic wealth container. So I actually created a Kelly concoction. It's custom. My 5 steps are the same, but all of my scripts are custom to that client. But I use a combination of hypnotherapy, breath work, a somatic, a deepening script, and then a visualization and shadow work. So I literally take people through this 5 step process that it feels like one of my things I run once a month is called Soulgasm because it's like a release for your soul. And so it's literally allows you to process things that your body is holding on to without speaking the words.
Oh,
So
amazing.
I think anytime you can get into your body, it's magic sauce. If you're just watching this and you're like, what's one quick hit or something I could do? Start with breath work. You cannot breathe and think of your BS at the same time. Your mind is going to want to go crazy and you just keep rerouting it back. And the goal is just to be versus do for a little bit. And that's just a baby step, but I think it's 100% somatic work because most people, myself included, never learned how to properly process emotions as little people. So they get stuck because a lot of times we hear, sit down and look pretty, or stop crying, dry it up, or like whatever it is.
Yes,
And so then it's like we hurry up and rush through it instead of processing it and sitting in it.
absolutely. And I know you said to somatic work and breath work. And I think so many people don't really breathe. They
Oh, yeah,
it's so shallow how they breathe.
I
And
agree.
most people don't take the time or think, okay, maybe I should sit down and just breathe. And like you said, process the emotions. They just kind of hyperventilate and just
Yeah.
hit themselves.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm only in recovery of all of these things because I have the tools and tips now.
Exactly. Once you start working and helping other people, then you're like, holy crap, some of this applies to me.
Yeah, I'm writing a book right now called Unfuckwithable. And it's like my journey over the last 20 years. And like all of these tools are my tagline is memoir to method because I can see how the method was created, but I was my first client. And I was probably crazy. I was like the best client to ever have because I had to do so much work on myself.
Now, you mentioned you run once a month Soulgasm. Can you tell us a little bit what that is?
Yeah. Besides awesome, most people call it awesome, but I'll tell you what it is. Honestly, it's a 2 hour recalculation of coming home to yourself. So I actually take people through, but I do it more generalized, whereas my private work is custom. This is more generalized. I take you through the 5 steps so you can see it and feel it because you have to experience it to understand it because most people they don't even remember what peace or calm feels like because the other feeling is so familiar. So I use that method and it was funny. I don't know what's appropriate to say and what's not appropriate to say. We'll cut this if we can't say it.
Oh, no,
But
be as blunt as
the
you want to.
name was created back in the day. It was 2019 and I was doing my philosophy that wasn't had a name then. And my client was like, holy cow, I don't know what that was, but I just feel like I had a soulgasm. That was
Wow,
better than sex with my husband.
that's amazing.
So it's like a release for the soul. Women walk away taking fast moves, doing things they've been sitting on, feeling lighter, their income. It's like you become this beautiful back into your power, remembrance of who you are, and clearing out kind of the stuckness that gets in the way and slows us down. So I literally think of it as a once a month opportunity to dump out the old to make way for the new. And breath work is always included in there.
Amazing.
So because it's such a game changer.
I love the name, by the way.
When I was writing my book, they're like, are you sure that's the name that you want to use? What if they went big here? They're like, what if you're on the Today Show? Do you think they're really going to say unfuckwithable? I'm like, you tell me what other word that makes sense
Right.
for who the woman becomes after we work together. And they're like, okay, you're right.
Now, what does it take to actually break the pattern? So, if somebody finally, or the clients that you work with finally understand, what does
Yeah.
it take to actually break through?
I wish I could tell you the easy route, but it's repetition. Let me give you a very quick analogy. If you're a hiker, you like to go into the woods or you take a walk, you go in, you can follow a path because somebody's walked that path a million times. So if you want to start a new path, it's not padded down. There's not it's a neural pathway. So I'm going to take the sciencey and dumb it down into a path. But basically, it's repetition. So your mind is following that path. It's going to go to the old programming automatically over and over. It's the path of least resistance. It knows what's to do. So you have to catch it. That's why it was called a pattern interrupt. And then you have to have something in place. That first step is like making a connection. And how do you strengthen a connection? By doing it again and again. So it's like you're catching it live time. You're not going to be perfect. And especially the women that are probably watching this podcast, 80% is winning. Sorry, girl. Like your 100% is somebody else's. Like
Yeah.
your 80% is somebody else's 100. So you're catching it and then you're choosing a new belief, a new thought, a new behavior on purpose. Feel the resistance, feel the fear, and do it anyways, because then you're strengthening a new imprint. And eventually, do that multiple times, the path gets more smooth, and then do it consistently. And now your mind reroutes and automatically goes to the right versus it went to the left.
And when women are working through that, do you ever see where they're making progress and they're moving in the right direction and then all of a sudden they regress completely? And
Yeah,
they
100%. But not for long because it's like they can see it. You might spiral. It's like maybe taking at first 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Then it's 2 steps forward, a half a step back. So it's once you see it, it's almost like you can recognize it when you're operating in the old way. And then you're like, oh my gosh. And you can consciously catch it in live time. And so you realize this new pattern is more powerful and more productive. So it becomes more fun to operate that way versus going into the old, because the old is usually blocking you in some form or fashion. Or if it's not coming up, it doesn't need to be cleared out. But when these things are coming up, which is where I find the women are, they're done. They're tired. They don't want this stuff dragging them down anymore. So when they feel the new, they're like, oh my gosh. So, of course, we're human. So we're going to slide back. Okay, I just told you I've done this work for 8 years consistently every day, studying it for hours and hours, and literally just learned this lesson the first quarter of this year. Dang it, girl. And another thing is, it's new level, new devil. So when you're on the cusp of going to the new level, I think some of these old patterns show back up, but you just have to clear them again. And it's faster each time you're doing it.
Because now you're aware of what you
Yeah.
need to do and you've done it enough times where you know where to go back to.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
100%.
So now when they've broken through these patterns, how does it change? How does it show up now in their business, in their relationships? How do they feel? How do they show up to the world?
Okay, so I'll tell you like what I say, and then I'm going to tell you how it feels. I always say, when you work with me, at the end of your time, you're like a naked raw baby chicken. I used to want to send my clients like chickens, and my husband's, you can't send people chickens, Kelly. I'm like, really? But I think of plucking away like all the stories, and then you're in your raw. In a more fun way to say it is, you've killed the stories that were impacting your confidence. You're no longer putting your trust outside of yourself. There's this remembrance of who you are. And so you're in your full power. You're in a fuck yes life. It doesn't matter what I'm going to go through, because I know who I am. And you might be down, but you're not out. So to me, it's the most powerful place for a woman to be, because she's unstoppable. Unstoppable. And it doesn't mean that life isn't going to life, but it means that you have the tools that when life lifes, you're down, not out.
Now you're operating from a different system, different level.
You're in the game still. You're in the game, baby. You're not leaving the game.
Now, what's a mistake that you see high performers make when they're trying to hold more growth, more income, more responsibility?
I have a joking answer, what I want to say, but what is the reality? A mistake they make, it's the same thing. They stay in the go go mentality. They're never, they don't choose to look at it any other way than, what I've always done is worked harder, doubled down. And so they don't really think there's any other option. There's no flow. There's nothing other than, this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to keep grinding. And if my ads aren't working, then I'm going to put 14 ads out instead of 10. And if this isn't working, I'm going to send 6 emails instead of 2. So I really feel like the hustle just becomes heightened.
Yeah, I think the hustle culture has gotten a hold of so many people and they just keep just going in that spiral and they
Yeah.
just some of them never get out because they can't see past it. They're like, no, I just need to work
Yeah.
harder. And like you said, they've been doing it forever and it's not getting any different results. But some people can, it's hard to see when you're in
Yeah.
it.
I definitely think it's hard to see. That's why I think whatever line of work you're in, I think coaching is super powerful, because I think every leader needs a soft place to land. And when you're in it, you just can't see it. I don't care what kind of coach you are, like
Yeah.
whether you're trying to become better in golf or you're trying to become a better business owner. Coaching is designed for someone else from neutrality to call you up, not out, and allow you to see the things that are going to help you go bigger, faster. And I think, like most people, here's another thing a lot of people do. They'll go to their friends or family because they want to validate what they already hear, versus going to someone who's going to speak truth into them. So I think we kind of stay stuck in this safety bubble, almost like misery loves company. I'm going to
Yes.
go to the people who are going to reaffirm what I'm already thinking and feeling, so I can keep holding on to this story, essentially.
And I think sometimes they also kind of want to stay in that box or not disappoint
Yeah.
the people that they're surrounded by because if they do too much outside of the comfort zone, they're also making the others uncomfortable, which is ironic, quite honestly.
Yeah. I always say people like you when you're normal,
Hmm.
and then when you elevate above them, they feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, they feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So you said AI is closing the knowledge gap. So, which means that the human gap gets bigger. What does that mean for women that are building their businesses right now?
So I think that, I guess for my line of work, what it means is I think AI is a tool, but I also think that people are losing their voice within the tool and relying on the tool. And then actually, I'm speaking coming up on a conference about having to regulate your nervous system because people are freaking out with AI or they're in it too much. But I just feel like there's certain things that AI, the personalization, can't pull forward. So I feel like you can get tools anywhere, but you can't get the undoing through AI. So I think you can find tools and knowledge, but I think working with somebody, that human aspect is something that AI can't touch. So I think it's great for marketing. I think it collapses time and walls in certain business aspects, but I don't think it's ever going to take away from the personalization and what could be offered through this kind of work.
I agree. I think it can help you maybe systemize a lot of the consistent things that you have to do that they don't need you. But as far as your
Yeah.
voice and your creativity, like it, I don't think it can take over that.
Yeah.
And so many people are so afraid because they're like, oh, it's taking over. And it's no, you can use it to alleviate some of the stress some places. And it still you, your authentic
Yeah.
you, it's hard to replace.
I think it's here's okay. I love calling myself out because I'm just a great example. So when I was in this like a marketing story, I was telling myself I was also out of alignment because temporarily I was focusing on the money for my clients for marketing, which at the end of the day, my clients don't, most of them have the money, don't care about it. That's a byproduct. More comes through this work, but they're not like hiring me necessarily off the bat because they want to go to 6 to 7 figures. So I couldn't even hear my own voice because my marketing message was a little bit out of whack. So I was using a and it totally lost me. And again, part of that story, the minute I went back just to talking and being me, it was like my audience and community could feel it. So I think it's like, if anything, use AI, but talk into it, make sure it sounds like you,
Right.
and then use it as a tool. But it can never, maybe, let's see what happens as time goes on. But I don't think that it's a substitute for your magic, your messaging, and how you're meant to show up in the world.
Completely agree. Now, final question. If
Okay.
someone is listening right now and she recognizes herself in this conversation, what's the first thing she should actually do?
Just grab my 5 days to an unstoppable mindset. Okay, what should she do? Start questioning everything. Start questioning everything. So much of what we do, this is a fun story. We can close on this. Back in the day, like little tiny Kelly, I'm in elementary school, it's Thanksgiving, and there were sweet potatoes. Trust me, there's a business story in here. There were sweet potatoes on top of the stove. My cousin was like, ooh, gross. So I automatically was like, ooh, gross, and didn't eat the sweet potatoes. And it was only 3 years ago that I tried sweet potatoes for the very first time. And they were fries, they were in a form of fries. But first, it was like, oh, I don't like sweet potatoes. But the fries look so good. And so I tried one and I was like, oh my gosh, I like sweet potatoes. But I had lived in a story of something somebody else had said without questioning it and didn't eat sweet potatoes for 25 years. That's insane. Now I love them and eat sweet potato fries all the time. So I think the same thing in business. Think about the patterns you have. Think about the way you operate because it's usually so automatic you don't question it. So I think beginning to question everything. That's actually the first thing I did. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing it this way? Why am I thinking this thought? Where did this come from? Is that mine? Or is it just something I heard somebody else say over and over? So I think a very first step gets to be easy that when you're like, oh, whatever the business problem is that you're saying, why is this a problem? Where have I felt this way before? How does this feel similar? What have I noticed? And just getting really curious about it, I think is a great place to start because I think you have to create awareness because again, I think you can't clear what you can't see.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. I enjoyed this conversation so much. How can people connect with you and find you?
Yeah, I feel like I play around mostly on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm Kelly Adams Coaching on Instagram. I have all kinds of free downloads and freebies. I have a goal to get these tools in a million women's hands by 2030. So I try to share a lot of the tools because, again, I feel like tools are accessible. And then for the woman who wants to do more, you do more. But to me, I just want to get tools in women's hands.
Amazing. And you mentioned there you're going to be in a conference pretty soon. Can you tell me more about the conference?
There's a lot coming up, a lot of different ones, but I'll share those. The one I was talking about where I'm seeing it the most is called AI Profit Con. That's in Austin, and that August 21st and 22nd. But there is a lot of different ways. I guess if you're in Austin, Texas, come say hi.
I'm in Houston, so I'm thinking about it right now. Holy crap, I could actually go to this one.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. There's AI Hot Girls Club there, and then there's AI Profit Con. So it's just about a room for women business owners, people that are interested in bringing AI into their business as a way to have consulting AI services, how to bring it into the workplace. That's going to be a great conference. There's two different paths that people can take. And that's just another way to get in the room and expand with other business owners.
Okay, that's
I guess selfish plug here since we're on this topic. I'm actually helping with partnerships and sponsorships for the people who want to get in the room.
oh, okay, amazing. That sounds pretty cool too.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
me.
This was
So much fun
great.
jamming out. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
You can keep grinding or you can sit with what came up. I do one-on-one calls for women who are ready to figure out what's actually capping them. Link in the show notes. I'm Desi Batista. This is Expansion. Talk soon.